Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. The sharp sting of antiseptic clawed at my nostrils as I blinked awake, the sterile white lights of the hospital room searing into my retinas. My body felt like a lead weight, each movement a monumental effort as the aftermath of the poisoning coursed through my veins. The doctors said it was a miracle I'd survived. A cocktail of arsenic and rat poison, an attempt on my life that almost succeeded. They chalked it up to a mistake at the local diner, but something about that explanation never sat right with me. I shifted in the hospital bed, trying to ignore the tubes and wires monitoring my every breath. My wife, Clara, had been a constant presence by my side, her worried brow and trembling hands a portrait of marital concern, or so it seemed. She was out now, supposedly fetching something from the cafeteria. The truth, however, was far more sinister, and it was about to shatter the semblance of the life I thought I knew. The need to stretch my legs and the gnawing doubt in my gut propelled me out of bed. I shuffled through the silent corridors, the echo of my footsteps a lonely soundtrack to my impromptu exploration. The hospital at night was a different beast, shadows lurking in every corner, the dim lights casting long, ghostly shadows. It was a muffled giggle that caught my attention, oddly out of place in the hushed solemnity of the hospital. Curiosity piqued, I followed the sound, my heart pounding in my chest as I approached the morgue. The door was slightly ajar, a sliver of light spilling into the dark hallway. The giggles grew louder, more distinct. I pushed the door open, my breath hitching in my throat at the sight before me. Clara, half naked, sat perched on the edge of the couch that just hours earlier had held the body of John Doe, her fingers tangled in the hair of Dr. Malcolm Hayes, who was all too eager to please her. My vision blurred, a mix of rage and heartache choking me. I stumbled back, a gasp escaping me, loud enough to turn their illicit tryst into a tableau of guilt. Clara's eyes met mine, wide with shock and then narrowing in an instant calculation. "Jack. It's not what it looks like," she stammered, clumsily covering herself. Malcolm stood up, adjusting his coat, his expression one of annoyance rather than remorse. "Jack, I can explain." "Explain." My voice was a hoarse whisper, venom dripping from each syllable. "You poison me, then comfort yourselves among the dead. What is there to explain?" Clara was quick, tears already brimming, a practiced sorrow. "Jack, I thought you were dead. They said." "Enough." I cut her off, my entire body shaking. I heard enough, saw enough. Turning on my heel, I left them in that cold room of death, their pleas fading behind me. The walk back to my room was a blur, each step fueling the fire of betrayal and brewing plans for retribution. I would recover. I would rebuild. But as for Clara and Malcolm, their fates were sealed from the moment I opened that door. By morning, the divorce papers would be drawn up. My lawyer, always a night owl, answered on the first ring, ready to set in motion the end of my marriage. And as for Clara, I had no intentions of ever crossing paths with her again. She had chosen her bed, and she could lie in it, far away from me. As dawn broke over the city, the first rays of sunlight creeping into my hospital room, I felt a strange peace. It was the beginning of a new chapter, and though the road ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear: I would never again be the man who walked into that morgue. My innocence was a small price to pay for the freedom that awaited me beyond these hospital walls. The day after the morgue incident, the hospital feels different. The sterile, impersonal atmosphere is now tainted with a lingering sense of betrayal. As I sit in my room, my mind churns with the events of the night before, the image of Clara and Malcolm burned into my memory. My hand shakes as I sip the lukewarm coffee, trying to steady my nerves. The door opens, and I expect to see Clara's guilty face, but instead, it's Dr. Ellen Fisher, the hospital's head of internal medicine. "Mr. Danner, good morning," she says, her tone professional but warm, with a hint of curiosity in her eyes. "I hope you're feeling better." "Better?" "That might be a stretch," I reply, my voice still hoarse from the ordeal. But alive, I suppose. That's something. Dr. Fisher nods, pulling up a chair beside my bed. I understand you've been through quite an ordeal. But there's something I need to discuss with you. Her serious tone catches my attention, and I set down my coffee, my heart picking up speed. What is it, doctor? She leans in slightly, lowering her voice. We've been reviewing your case. The poisoning, it was no accident. Her words hang in the air like a heavy fog, suffocating. I already had my suspicions, but hearing it confirmed feels like a punch to the gut. No accident? I echo, trying to process the gravity of the situation. Dr. Fisher's expression is grim. The levels of toxins in your system were too precise, too calculated. We believe someone intentionally administered them. Someone? Do you mean, someone here? At the hospital? My mind races, connecting dots that paint a dark picture. She hesitates, then nods. It's a possibility we can't ignore. And given what you've told me about what you witnessed last night. She trails off, her meaning clear. Malcolm. Clara. My stomach churns with a mix of anger and fear. Why are you telling me this? I ask, my voice edged with suspicion. Why not go to the police? We will, but I wanted to inform you first. And. She pauses, choosing her words carefully. I thought you should know that Dr. Hayes and your wife have both left the hospital. They're unreachable at the moment. My blood runs cold. Unreachable? What do you mean? They both left abruptly early this morning. No one's heard from them since. She meets my gaze, her eyes filled with concern. It's possible they're trying to evade responsibility. But that's not all, Mr. Danner. We're investigating potential misconduct involving several members of the staff, and Dr. Hayes is at the center of it. The room seems to tilt slightly as I take in her words. This is bigger than I thought. Much bigger. What kind of misconduct? I can't divulge everything right now, Dr. Fisher says, glancing around as if the walls have ears. But we suspect Dr. Hayes has been involved in illegal activities, possibly using his position to manipulate patients and staff. My mind reels. Poisoning, betrayal, now this? What do you want from me? I ask, trying to keep my voice steady. Your cooperation, she replies, leaning in closer. We need to understand how deep this goes, and you might have information that can help. I'm putting together a team to investigate this quietly before we bring in the authorities. I stare at her, weighing my options. And what if I say no? Dr. Fisher smiles faintly, though there's no humor in it. Then you're free to walk away. But given what's happened to you, don't you want to find out the truth? Don't you want to see them held accountable? The anger that has been simmering beneath the surface flares up, white-hot and uncontrollable. I clench my fists, the thought of Clara and Malcolm getting away with this makes my blood boil. All right, I say, my voice firm. I'm in. But I want to know everything. No more secrets. She nods, a look of relief washing over her face. Thank you, Mr. Danner. We'll start immediately. Over the next few hours, the room becomes a hub of activity. Dr. Fisher brings in 2 more people, Detective Sarah Lang, a no-nonsense investigator who specializes in hospital crimes, and Mark Donovan, a computer expert tasked with digging into digital records. They're both sharp, efficient, and clearly driven by a sense of justice. We're going to look into Dr. Hayes' files, Mark explains, setting up his laptop on the small table by my bed. If there's anything suspicious, I'll find it. Sarah paces the room, her eyes scanning every detail. And I'll be tracking down Hayes and your wife. They can't hide forever. But we need you to tell us everything you know, Mr. Danner. Every detail, no matter how small. I recount the events of the poisoning, the aftermath, and the scene I stumbled upon in the morgue. Sarah listens intently, occasionally jotting down notes, while Mark's fingers fly over the keyboard, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Do you think Clara was involved from the start?" I ask, the thought sickening me. "It's possible," Sarah replies, her tone neutral but sympathetic. "We'll know more once we dig deeper into her background and connections." Hours pass in a blur of questions, theories, and analysis. The hospital around us hums with its usual activity, oblivious to the investigation unfolding within its walls. As the day fades into evening, a breakthrough finally comes. "Got something," Mark announces, his voice cutting through the tension. We all crowd around his laptop, the screen displaying a series of emails between Dr. Hayes and an unknown contact. This person, Mark points to the name, has been paying Hayes large sums of money. "And look at this." He clicks on another file, revealing a list of patients, including my name. "These are people who've either died under suspicious circumstances or had near-fatal incidents like yours," he says, his voice grave. My heart hammers in my chest. "So, I was targeted?" "Looks like it," Sarah says, her eyes narrowing. "We need to find out who's behind this. And fast." Dr. Fisher nods, her expression set in determination. "We'll keep digging." "But Jack," she turns to me, her tone softening, "I need you to be careful. Whoever did this won't hesitate to silence you if they feel threatened." The weight of her words presses down on me, but I refuse to back down. "I'm not going anywhere," I say, my voice steady. "I want to see this through." As they pack up for the night, promising to return first thing in the morning, I'm left alone in the room, the weight of the day settling in. The pieces of the puzzle are slowly coming together, but the picture they form is darker and more twisted than I could have imagined. I lie back in the bed, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I've stepped into a world I never knew existed, one filled with deceit, danger, and hidden agendas. But I'm in it now, and there's no turning back. Tomorrow will bring new revelations, new challenges, but I'm ready. For the first time since I woke up in this hospital, I feel a sense of purpose. Clara and Malcolm have unleashed something they couldn't have predicted, and I'm going to make sure they pay for it. One way or another, the truth will come out. The early morning light filters through the thin hospital curtains, casting a pale, almost ghostly glow across the room. I barely sleep, my mind too restless, churning with the revelations of the previous day. As promised, Dr. Fisher, Detective Lang, and Mark Donovan return, each carrying the weight of a grim determination. "Jack," Dr. Fisher begins as she enters, her voice softer than usual. "We've made progress. But we need your help with something critical." I sit up, alert. "What do you need me to do?" Sarah steps forward, flipping open a small notepad. "We need you to come with us to a safe location. Mark's been able to trace some leads, and we believe Dr. Hayes and your wife are connected to something much larger. We've arranged a private meeting with a potential informant." My stomach twists at the thought of leaving the relative safety of the hospital, but I nod. "All right. When do we leave?" "Now," Sarah says, her tone leaving no room for hesitation. "The longer we wait, the colder the trail gets. We've got a car ready." Mark gathers his equipment, packing up his laptop with a speed that speaks of routine. "I'll keep working from the safe house," he says, slinging his bag over his shoulder. "But we have to move quickly. There are eyes everywhere." We make our way through the hospital's labyrinthine corridors, avoiding the main exits. Sarah leads the way, her movements precise and cautious, her hand never far from the concealed weapon under her jacket. I follow closely, flanked by Dr. Fisher and Mark, who occasionally glances over his shoulder. When we finally reach the car, a nondescript black sedan waiting in a secluded part of the parking lot, my heart pounds in my chest. It's all happening so fast, but there's no turning back now. "Get in the back," Sarah instructs, sliding into the driver's seat. Mark takes the passenger seat, his laptop already out, and Dr. Fisher joins me in the back, her expression tight with concern. As we drive, the city blurs past, a mix of concrete and glass, shadows and light. The tension in the car is palpable, a silent acknowledgement of the danger we're heading into. I try to push down the anxiety gnawing at my insides, focusing instead on the goal ahead, justice. We're meeting an informant named Vincent, Sarah explains, breaking the silence. He's a former associate of Hayes, involved in some shady dealings. He reached out to us, claiming he has information that could blow this case wide open. And you trust him? I ask, trying to gauge the situation. Trust is a strong word, Sarah says, her eyes focused on the road. But he's our best lead. And from what we've gathered, he's looking for a way out. He knows too much, and it's making him nervous. The car pulls into an underground parking garage, the kind that reeks of secrecy and cold concrete. We park in a secluded corner, away from the sparse security cameras. Sarah kills the engine, and the silence that follows is heavy. We go in, we stay together, she instructs, her voice low and commanding. Vincent's expecting us, but stay alert. We don't know what we're walking into. I nod, feeling the weight of my decision. This is a world I've only seen in movies or read about in books, but now it's my reality, and I'm in the thick of it. We step out of the car, the cold air of the garage biting at my skin. Sarah leads the way, her movements deliberate, her senses on high alert. We approach a service elevator at the back of the garage. She presses the button, and the metal doors slide open with a groan. Inside the elevator, the tension only thickens. We ascend in silence, the soft hum of the elevator the only sound. When the doors open, we step out into a dimly lit hallway. At the end of it, a door stands slightly ajar, light spilling out into the gloom. This is it, Sarah whispers, her hand resting on the butt of her gun. Stay behind me. We move toward the door, the sound of our footsteps muffled by the worn carpet. As we reach the door, Sarah pushes it open with her free hand, revealing a small, sparsely furnished room. In the center stands a man, tall, gaunt, with a sharp, nervous energy about him. His eyes dart between us, and I can tell he's on edge. Vincent? Sarah says, her tone firm but not unfriendly. Yeah, that's me, he replies, his voice shaky. You the detective? Detective Lang, she confirms, not taking her eyes off him. These are my colleagues. This is Jack Danner, the man whose case we're investigating. Vincent's eyes flicker to me, and for a moment, there's a flash of recognition. You're the guy Hayes was talking about, he mutters, more to himself than to us. What do you know about Hayes and my wife? I ask, stepping forward despite the subtle warning glance from Sarah. Vincent shifts uncomfortably, running a hand through his greasy hair. Look, Hayes, he's bad news. Always has been. But lately, he's been different. More paranoid. He's been working with some people, real dangerous types. Your wife, she got mixed up in it. I don't know how or why, but she's in deep. Deep how? Sarah presses, her voice cold and precise. Vincent licks his lips, nervous. Money laundering, maybe. Drugs. Hayes has been using his position at the hospital to move things around, keep it all under the radar. And your wife? He glances at me again, she's been helping him. The words hit me like a physical blow, and for a moment, I can't breathe. Why would she do that? I manage to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Money, power, who knows? Vincent shrugs. But she's in it now, and they're all in over their heads. That's why I reached out. I can't go down with them. Do you have proof? Mark interjects, his voice carrying a sharp edge. Vincent nods quickly. Yeah. I've got files, documents, stuff Hayes didn't think anyone would find. But they're hidden. I'll take you there, but you gotta promise to protect me. Once they know I've talked. We'll protect you, Sarah assures him, though there's a steeliness in her voice that suggests her patience is wearing thin. But we need those files. Okay, Vincent mutters, rubbing his hands together. I'll take you to them. But we gotta be careful. Hayes has people watching me, I'm sure of it. As we prepare to leave, the door suddenly slams open, and a large, burly man steps into the room, his face a mask of fury. Vincent, you rat, he growls, his hand reaching into his coat. Everything happens in a blur. Sarah pulls her gun, barking orders, and Vincent scrambles back, knocking over a chair in his panic. The man lunges forward, and a shot rings out, deafening in the small space. The man crumples to the floor, clutching his leg, blood pooling beneath him. Stay down. Sarah orders, her gun trained on the man as she moves forward to secure him. Mark, call for backup. Mark's already on his phone, rattling off their location to the authorities. I stand frozen, the chaos of the moment crashing over me in waves. Jack, are you okay? Dr. Fisher's voice cuts through the noise, pulling me back to the present. I nod, though I'm not sure I believe it myself. Sarah secures the man's hands behind his back, her movements quick and efficient. This just got a whole lot more complicated, she mutters, shooting a glance at Vincent, who's pale and shaking. I told you they were watching me, Vincent whimpers, his bravado from earlier completely gone. Let's get out of here, Sarah says, grabbing Vincent by the arm and pulling him toward the door. Mark, bring the car around. We need to move, now. As we rush back down the hallway, the weight of the situation presses down on me. This isn't just about Clara and Malcolm anymore. It's about something far bigger, something that could ruin lives, and not just mine. We pile into the car, and as Sarah speeds out of the garage, my mind races with the implications of what we've just uncovered. There's no turning back now. We're in deep, and the only way out is through. As we drive into the shadows of the city, the hunt for the truth becomes even more urgent. And I know that whatever happens next, I have to be ready for it. Because this is just the beginning. The safe house is a small, unremarkable building on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by a high fence and equipped with security cameras. It feels like a fortress, but also a prison. As soon as we arrive, Sarah and Mark get to work, setting up their equipment and planning our next move. Vincent, still visibly shaken, is given a corner to rest in, but it's clear he's too paranoid to sleep. All right, Vincent, Sarah says, her voice cutting through the tension. We need those files now. Where are they? Vincent swallows hard, his eyes darting around the room. They're at a storage facility downtown. I rented a unit under a fake name. Everything's in there. Sarah nods, glancing at Mark. We'll go tonight. Jack, you stay here with Dr. Fisher. We can't risk you getting caught in the crossfire. I'm coming with you, I say firmly, meeting her gaze. This is my fight too. Jack, Dr. Fisher starts, but I cut her off. No. I need to see this through. Sarah studies me for a moment, then nods. All right. But you stay close and follow my lead. Understood? Understood, I reply, feeling a surge of determination. As night falls, we prepare to leave. Sarah arms herself with a concealed pistol, and Mark checks his laptop one last time. Vincent, still jittery, leads the way to the car. The drive to the storage facility is tense, the silence heavy with anticipation. When we arrive, the lot is eerily quiet, lit only by a few dim streetlights. Vincent directs us to a unit at the far end of the row, his hands shaking as he unlocks the door. Inside, stacks of boxes and folders line the walls, a treasure trove of evidence. Mark immediately gets to work, setting up his laptop and scanning documents. These are it, he says, his voice tight with excitement. Financial records, emails, even photos. This is the proof we need. Good, Sarah says, her eyes scanning the room. We'll take what we can and get out of here. The authorities will handle the rest. As we gather the files, a noise outside catches our attention. The sound of footsteps, heavy and deliberate, echo through the stillness. Sarah's eyes meet mine, and she motions for silence. Stay back, she whispers, her hand hovering over her gun. The door bursts open, and Malcolm Hayes steps inside, flanked by two burly men. His face twists into a sneer as he takes in the scene. Well, well, he says, his voice dripping with contempt. Look who we have here. The brave little investigator and her band of misfits. Hayes, Sarah spits, her gun drawn. It's over. We have all the evidence we need. Malcolm laughs, a cold, mirthless sound. You think you can just waltz in here and take me down? You have no idea what you're up against. One of his men lunges at Sarah, but she's quicker, her shot ringing out and dropping him to the floor. The second man charges at Mark, who ducks just in time, the man's fist smashing into a stack of boxes instead. Chaos erupts. I grab a nearby metal rod and swing it at Malcolm, but he dodges, his fist connecting with my jaw and sending me sprawling. Dr. Fisher rushes to my side, helping me up as Sarah and Mark fight off the attackers. Jack! Dr. Fisher cries, her voice filled with panic. We need to get out of here. I stagger to my feet, my vision swimming. Malcolm advances on us, but Sarah intercepts him, her gun trained on his chest. Enough, she shouts. It's over, Hayes. Malcolm's eyes flash with anger, but he raises his hands in surrender. You've won this round, detective. But this isn't over. Yes, it is, Sarah replies, her voice steady. Mark, call it in. Let's get these files to the authorities. As Mark makes the call, I turn to Vincent, who's huddled in a corner, shaking uncontrollably. You did good, Vincent, I say, placing a hand on his shoulder. This is the end of the line for them. Vincent nods, tears streaming down his face. I just want to be safe, he whispers. You will be, I assure him, though I'm not entirely sure I believe it myself. Back at the safe house, we wait for the authorities to arrive. The atmosphere is thick with relief and exhaustion. Vincent is taken into protective custody, and Sarah and Mark begin the process of handing over the evidence. Jack, Sarah says, pulling me aside. We need to talk. I nod, following her to a quiet corner. What is it? It's about Clara, she begins, her expression serious. There's more to her involvement than we thought. We found communications between her and another party, someone we didn't identify until now. Who? I ask, my heart pounding. Sarah hesitates, then sighs. It's Dr. Fisher. I freeze, my mind reeling. What? That can't be right. It is, Sarah says, her eyes filled with regret. Dr. Fisher was working with Hayes and Clara, feeding them information and helping them cover their tracks. Why? I demand, my voice shaking. Why would she do that? For money, for power, Sarah replies. She was part of their operation from the start. The betrayal cuts deep, a fresh wound on top of everything else. I turn to see Dr. Fisher, who's been watching us from across the room, her face pale. Is it true? I ask, my voice barely more than a whisper. Dr. Fisher's eyes well with tears, and she nods. Yes, Jack. I'm sorry. I got in too deep, and I couldn't find a way out. You betrayed me, I say, the words tasting bitter. You used me. I did, she admits, her voice breaking. But I never meant for it to go this far. I wanted to help you, but I couldn't escape their grasp. Sarah steps forward, placing a hand on my shoulder. Jack, we need to take her in. She'll face justice, just like Hayes. I nod numbly, watching as Dr. Fisher is led away in handcuffs. The sense of finality is overwhelming, but so is the emptiness. The people I trusted most had deceived me in the worst possible ways. The next few days are a blur of police interviews and media frenzy. The evidence we uncovered brings down Malcolm Hayes' operation, and Clara is arrested along with several other conspirators. The public is shocked by the scandal, but for me, it's a hollow victory. As I stand in the ruins of what was once my life, I realize that this is the end. There's no going back, no reclaiming what was lost. The love I had for Clara is gone, replaced by a deep-seated hatred for her betrayal. One evening, as the sun sets over the city, I pack my belongings into a small suitcase. The divorce papers are signed, the house sold, and my life reduced to a few essential items. I look around the empty apartment one last time before closing the door behind me. I step out into the cool evening air, a sense of freedom mingling with the lingering pain. The road ahead is uncertain, but it's mine to walk alone. As I leave the city behind, I vow never to let betrayal darken my life again. The deception has been revealed, and the main characters have parted forever, their lives irrevocably changed by the events that transpired. And as I move forward, I carry the lessons of the past with me, a reminder of the price of trust and the cost of betrayal.